So Christian, I'm so thrilled to have you at last on the Quantum Creating Podcast. It's been a long time coming, my friend, hasn't it?
I know, we got there in the end, but thank you so much for having me. Hopefully it'll be worth the wait.
I'm sure it will. Knowing you as I do, I'm sure it will. And just so everyone does know, Christian and I have known each other for quite some time now, isn't it? I can't remember exactly how long.
I think we met, I would say, 9 or 10 years ago, first time we met.
Yeah, it must be. It really must be. And time is just gone.
Oh,
time is gone.
Lies.
And talking of time, we find ourselves in most unusual times, don't we? Because as of recording this podcast, I think we're just cracking on with the third week of lockdown. So very interesting times. What do you make of it all?
Like you say, it's very interesting, and it's a time that I don't think anyone could have been prepared for or know what is the right or wrong way to react and respond to it. So I think it's showing the best in a lot of humankind. It's showing the worst in some. But I think what will be even more interesting is how people evolve and come out the other side.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is going to be interesting. And I think there's going to be, for me, what really strikes me is that certainly things are changing. The fact that the entire planet can be locked down now is something that's never really happened, even during world wars. There's been elements of the planet that have carried on as normal, but every single country has been affected by this in some way or another. And it will be interesting to see what kind of happens as we go through this with our evolution, with the evolution of societies, with the evolution of all sorts of things. And whether people are prepared to go back to the comfort and safety as once was, or are they prepared to change now? What do you think on that?
I think it certainly shine the light towards change. That's what I mean by, I think it'd be interesting how it does affect people long term. So I think, nothing to this scale, of course, and nothing to this kind of stature in respect of affecting the whole world as it is. But I think often people go through pain and that causes them to think they will change. But when normality returns, it becomes too easy to fall into the habits of kind of the path of least resistance and doing what we always do. So I think definitely in the conversations I'm certainly having with clients and people on a more social level, I think people are reassessing lots of things about life, the way they do things, what's important, what a priority. So I definitely think it will. I don't think you can go through something on such a scale as this without it having an impact at some level. So I definitely think there will be some positive changes to come on a personal, individual level from this, which can only then impact us as a global community as well.
So in your work as a hypnotherapist of some repute, I hasten to add, how have you found people's anxiety levels going through this?
Do you know what, even before this, Paul, I'd say that over the last, I think 18 or so years I've been doing this, and I'd say definitely the volume of people I see and come into contact with who are affected by stress, anxiety at some level has massively gone up over that time. So I think it's definitely something that is on the rise before this. But without a doubt, I think there is it's magnifying that for a lot of people. It's the unknown, we don't like the unknown, we fear the unknown. No. So once you put that into the mix, all of a sudden people are not in control of so many factors. That anxiety has definitely risen as a result of this. And, I think there was a lot of positives happening with regards to mental health before this. And I do hope that continues to happen after this, because I think there'll be a lot of people who, they won't feel the same as they did before, because what has been the norm, what has been consistent for them and constant throughout their lives, a lot of that has been kind of shaken. So I think definitely we will see people's mental health and anxiety affected as a result of this, definitely.
I agree, and I also think physical health will be an issue as well, because people tend to, in my experience with my work, when people are suffering stress, when people are suffering anxiety or anything mentally, they tend to revert to type, whether that be not looking after themselves as well, making poor choices with their hydration, their nutrition, their rest and recovery, and so on and so forth. So there may be an additional dip after this is all done before we start to see an increase. Why do you think that anxiety has been rising recently?
I don't know. I think I'd be a very wealthy man if I had the answer to that one. I think if you look at it, there's a few contributing factors from my opinion. I think demands of life has changed dramatically. I'm a huge fan of the positive impact things like technology and social media plays in our life, but I think there's a negative side to that as well.
Right.
And I think even as we go through this, COVID-19, I think that has played a huge part in the anxiety that people are going through, because, I know we've never had anything like this on this scale in our lifetime, but I think in the past we were restricted to our exposure to negative things when they occur. But with, for example, social media or mobile phones that we have at the end of our hand 24/7, people only have to look at it to see what's going on around the world, and people share and feel that the suffering that other people are going through, and sometimes misinformation. So I think, our exposure to what's going on in the world, and generally anxiety, if we talk kind of part COVID-19 for a moment, just the comparison of social media of other people's lives, the expectations of what we should and shouldn't be doing, seeing fit, healthy guys like yourself training and looking good, trying to keep up to that standard, Paul, is a tough measure.
It's tough enough for me to be there, or anything else. I'm interested in the social media aspect of it. I saw some research just recently that was done a few years ago, I think 4 or 5 years ago, on Facebook itself. And it utilized around about 700,000 users. So it's a significant study. And what it did is you've got to be very careful what we say these days with regard to social media, but effectively it manipulated people's timelines, right? So it manipulated them to show them more negative or more positive posts or images. And then what it did is it watched what happened with their posts and the posts of their followers. And what they discovered, that when there were more negative posts showing up in their feed, they became more negative themselves. They started posting more negative stuff, put up more negative images, more negative videos, more negative content. They also discovered that when they manipulated the feed to show more positive posts, then the user put more positive videos, more positive images, and more positive messages up. And it went throughout the umbrella of people that they were connected with. Now, this is known as, I believe, emotional contagion, that when people align mentally, the brain, the way the brain works, the way the energy of the brain waves, or however it does, it kind of locks in and harmonizes. And I think this is what we're seeing these days with all this press about, well, all sorts of things. Let's be honest, it's not just COVID-19. There's all this sort of conspiracy stuff going through the roof at the moment. It's very, very interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, agreed. But like you say, it's a different era. So we've got to expect, as it evolves in a positive way, there are going to be other sides to it that perhaps aren't as positive.
It is, and I think people have to be very, very mindful of what they're allowing into their lives, because as you and I both know, that the way that the mind and the brain works is that what we're exposed to tends to have a way of eating itself into our bodies, into our emotions, into our physical states, and it becomes very, very difficult to come away from that. We get ourselves exposed to these images, these news stories, these conspiracy theories, and we find ourselves focusing on that all the time, and that's not a healthy place to be.
No, absolutely not. But like you say, it is what it is, and it's the world that we live in, and there's lots of good sides to it. But I think what we have to do as individuals is take responsibility for deliberately, intentionally making sure that we're consuming, or as I like to call it when I'm speaking with my clients, is nurturing and feeding the mind.
Love it.
With the good stuff.
Yeah.
Take time. Don't just, switch on your phone or log into your favorite kind of channel and let the algorithms decide what you're going to see and be exposed to, you know, whether it be listening to podcasts like this or going to somebody's Instagram who posts good, positive, uplifting, inspiring stuff. You know, YouTube is full of videos with positive, motivating messages. So I'm not saying you have to be kind of, you know, with your kind of burying your head into sand to what's going on in the world. You know, take the time to be informed, but then take the time to intentionally feed the mind. You know, I'm forever saying to my clients, and I think you'll relate to this as well, you've got to treat the mindset like the physical body. And it's important that we work on our mind fitness equally as much as we work on our physical fitness. So, you know, I'm forever kind of repeating myself when I'm talking to my clients about mind fitness. You know, in the same way as, you know, someone who's really well established as I would call you a fitness expert, Paul, you wouldn't suggest to somebody to go and do a round of exercises and say that's your physical fitness ticked off. You don't need to worry about that anymore. You know, to get the benefit from it, it's something you've got to weave into the fabric of your life. It's something you've got to do consistently to reap the benefits and maintain that optimum well-being. But the same applies for mind fitness. So there's so many things out there. You know, I don't think there's a one size fits all. You know, some people love following the kind of law of attraction path. Some people are a huge fan of affirmations. Some people like meditation. Some people like self-hypnosis. Just find the bit that fits for you. Find the bit that resonates. And as your journey evolves, in the same way as, you know, if you're, you know, starting off from the couch, you know, going for a walk's going to be the best thing for you to do first. But a year down the line, you might be onto something more exciting, more advanced for where you are then. And the same applies for mind fitness. There's so much out there that we can fuel ourselves and our mind with. Just start somewhere and let the journey evolve and have fun and see where it takes you.
That's fascinating, and thank you for all of that incredible way of putting it. For the record, I haven't been called a fitness expert for quite some time, but I'm very happy. Well, this is it. Yeah, this is it. It's nice to revisit that era once more. You know, I love the way you say you kind of chunk it down into taking your time and taking it step by step by step, because I think this has kind of been lost these days. You know, I see people in so much of a hurry to get an end result, so much of a hurry to have what it is that they want, that they almost want to go from start to finish without the journey in between. And there's that learning curve. There's that place that they have to go, those steps they have to go through to be able to change their physical fitness, their mind fitness, their emotional fitness, whatever it is they need to do to grow, to develop, to evolve. That's part of the essentialness of this journey to getting what they want to get, right?
Yeah, and it's a paradox, isn't it? We're in an era where, again, it's that kind of microwave mentality where we want instant fixing, instant results. But then on the flip side, everyone complains or talks or mentions about how quickly time goes. It's almost like, well, if you only applied the small steps over a period of time, you're going to get the results. Whereas most people will stay stuck almost in that kind of paralysis of analysis, thinking, well, you know, I'm not going to get results tomorrow, so what's the point in doing it? Whereas just take the next step. Another thing, you know, and it's not kind of my concept, but one of the ideas I love sharing with my clients is just do the next one thing. You know, what's the one best thing I can do today that's going to move me a step closer? And again, if you chunk it down into those bite-sized, realistic and achievable steps, before too long, the compounding effects of those results will be significant. So just start.
Yeah. I think people underestimate the compounding nature of taking small steps. You know, one step today, one step tomorrow, one step next day. It's never just one step. It adds up over time, and your journey evolves, and the steps actually get bigger. They get more complex, and they get more enjoyable. They might get a bit tougher, but that's part of the process as well.
Indeed. And if you look at anything in life that people have accomplished, achieved, any success that people have gained, I don't know of many cases where it's been an overnight kind of success.
No.
You know, and again, fitness is a great kind of metaphor for that. You know, I was dedicated enough in my younger years to get my black belt. You know, and that doesn't come from, you know, turning up a couple of times. In the same way as last year, I ran my first full marathon. and the marathon day, if you like, was the icing on the cake. All the hard graft had
Mm.
gone in the miles and the days before that. Like you say, some runs are easy, some are challenging, and then there's external factors that come into play as well. So yeah, just taking things one step at a time, doing the next thing is such a, not an easier, but a better way of approaching it. And if you don't mind me going back to the time element as well, I don't know where I got this from, but I remember somebody saying to me once about taking the time. I think it's one of my early hypnotherapy mentors, actually. He's no longer with us, but he taught me a lot. Again, people always say, and we're all guilty of it, I do it sometimes, well, I haven't had time or haven't got time to do this. But the truth is we all have the same 24/7 as each other.
Yeah.
But it's how we choose to take the time to do what's important to us. And if there's something that we want to do, we want to achieve, we want to change, we want to accomplish, then that's only going to happen if we take the time to do it. So when you apply it that way, and again, I know it's language, but it makes an impact. Taking the time, there's more intent behind it. It's deliberate, it's purposeful. You've chosen to do it. Whereas if you leave it to chance, the chances are other factors, other things will take over and you'll never get around to doing it. So choosing and deciding what it is you want to do, and then taking the time to take the steps to make it happen will make a difference.
I've just been reading a book. I like the older books, the more the early books of the personal development era. I think there's a certain majesty and poetry about them. I don't know why, they just resonate with me more. Perhaps because they were of a simpler time when they weren't trying to sell anything, or they just gave you information to utilize. But there's one in particular. It was by a guy called J. Martin Cohey, I think, and it was entitled Your Power to Choose. And the concept of it was, and it's quite relevant in as what you just said, was that the greatest power we have at any time is our power to choose. And yet most of the time, he says about 90% of the time, but I think it might even be as high as 95% of the time these days, that we forego that power to choose. And we just drift along subconsciously, not consciously aware of what's going on. And we get buffeted from pillar to post, reacting to things that go off around us, firefighting, without actually sitting back and just trying to find space there. How do you get your clients to find that space in which to choose, Christian?
Again, I think it's where establishing habits and routines that work for you has an impact. Because like you say, life is busy. We've all got different roles to play. We've all got different demands that are coming at us. So we have to sometimes track our progress, evaluate our progress, and ensure that we put things in place to keep us on track and to find that space. So, again, like I say, some people enjoy daily discipline of doing meditation or simple breathing exercises or mindfulness. Some people get immense benefit out of journaling. And again, that creates a space for doing something like that. So I think it's putting things into play that allows us to naturally being the key word, get out of our own head.
Right.
And, whatever the means are for you personally to do that, doing that on a regular basis gets us out of the space where we're worrying and thinking about the past and the future stuff, and just be present more on a regular daily occurrence will make a difference to that.
Yeah, I love that, and I love the fact that it's okay to find what works for you. That there isn't in any area, and there's certainly no one way. I mean, we're dealing with an infinite universe, right? So it stands to reason that there's probably an infinite amount of ways that we could find one of them at least that serves us and helps us, and that might change over time. I always tell my clients that what might work for you today might not work for you tomorrow. What book you might enjoy today, you might not like tomorrow, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I've done that. It's the same. I've picked a book up and not really got the message from it. It didn't resonate, but then years later I picked it up and went, okay, that makes more sense, or I can go with that. And again, it's where you are at that time that impacts what's valuable to us.
So when you're dealing with clients, it seems that you place a lot of emphasis on the client having the power to choose, taking complete responsibility, and nurturing and feeding their mind. so that they have to become very, very careful of what they're taking on board, and what they're expressing. They're taking responsibility for all elements of their life. And they are expressing their power to choose at any time. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You know, if someone comes to me for whatever reason, they've decided to make a change in their life, they've made a choice,
Right.
but consciously. And sometimes that isn't enough for us. So
Right. Yeah.
a lot of the work I do forms, coaching, it's mindset coaching. And one of the key elements I use within that is hypnosis, because that's how I started on this path and this journey of helping people to change and to develop their mindset. So yeah, the more you can get clarity, the more an individual can get clarity on what it is they say they want and why they want it, then that really helps to galvanize the momentum to make that change. And when I say why, it's what I mean by that is it's all very well. Let's use the example of someone who wants to lose weight, just as an easy example. Someone says they want to lose weight. Very rarely do people want to lose weight for losing weight's sake.
No.
There's a reason, there's an underlying benefit that they're going to gain from that is what they're really after. But the reason so many people will lose some weight, they'll find a way that works for them in the short term, but then they end up putting the weight on and some, is because they haven't really connected to the why underneath that.
Right.
So once someone gets clarity on what they want, making that choice, and then really getting clear on why they want that, then it kind of really becomes that much easier to then choose the steps, the habits, the actions, the thoughts that are going to move them closer in that direction. So when I'm working with clients, I have a 3W concept I've created called the 3Ws. And what I ask people to do is to establish, or what we do is as a team, is we look at where they are in their life now.
Yeah.
What is it they're not happy with? What's the reason they're talking to me? So if we take a snapshot of their life and their current existence, what is it that they're not happy with? What is it they want to change? But the way the mind works is, if we get too fixated on that, nothing's going to change.
No.
So I kind of say it's like, if you imagine internally, we have our own inbuilt sat-nav, our own GPS system.
Yeah.
If you were going on a journey, if you programmed that for where you didn't want to go, that wouldn't be very helpful.
No.
In the same way as if you went shopping and took a shopping list of things you didn't want to buy, that's not going to be a fruitful trip. But it's important to establish where you're starting from. But then you need to move forward and then choose what it is that you actually want. And that is the beginning process of programming your mind to go in that direction. So if the plane or the car was programmed for a journey, a destination, inevitably there will be some twists and some turns. There will be some obstacles. But when your mind knows what it is that you want, it can find a way round, through, over, under to help get you there. But if you haven't got clear as to what it is that you want, the moment life throws a curveball your way, or there's some interruption, what happens? You get knocked off course, and then you get back onto that kind of path of chance of just where it will take you. That alone will make a difference. If somebody can get clear on what it is they actually want, but the why part comes into it. Because imagine you're sat in the car, you've programmed the sat nav, you've looked at the map, you're packed, you're looking forward to it, you're excited, you're enthused for where it is you're going, but you've got no fuel in the tank. That's frustrating. So the why for me is the emotional charge, the fuel, the momentum to help make it happen. Then you've got the ability, the empowerment and the freedom to then choose the actions, the thoughts that are going to help make that happen as well. So you're working at it at two levels. You're helping to get your mind clear on it, and then the path becomes clear and open for you to then do those one things every day that are going to make it happen for you. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and you put it so eloquently and simply, and I love the fact that you make sure that you know where you're starting from, you know where you're going to, and you know why you're doing the journey. And that concept is something that I learned years ago as well, and has helped me immeasurably in my life and with my clients as well. Where does your hypnotherapy play a role in all of this?
So for me, often the difference between doing traditional coaching, if you like, with clients, and it's such an invaluable tool on its own, but where for me the hypnotherapy takes things to another level is because for me, my practice, the way I work is there's two parts of the mind, and we can establish all of this consciously. We can read the books, we can have chats with the experts, but often there's some resistance. Sometimes people come to me, they're frustrated. They know what they want, but they don't seem to be able to do it. So for me, that's usually because there's some level of limiting beliefs. There's some out of date conditioning or programming, which for me is held at the subconscious level. Right. So what the hypnosis allows us to do is almost access that part of the mind to make the change of that level of awareness. So the two parts of the mind are working almost resistant free on the same level, in alignment with one another, so that they can just have the parts of the mind working together. So another way I like to explain it to my clients is, if you think of a computer, a telephone, a TV, if we rewound 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, that technology you had then was amazing, brilliant, fantastic. But if you were expected to use it today, you'd be frustrated because it's out of date. You wouldn't question why it was out of date. You wouldn't beat it up for being out of date. You would just change it. You'd update it. You'd upgrade it. So that's all we sometimes need to do with our mindset. We just need to update the software, the workings of our mind for where we are in our life now, rather than just letting it just happen by default. So, although it's therapy as such, quite often I don't do much therapeutic work with clients to try and establish why it's happening. It's almost, well, if it's not working for you, let's just change it. Let's just update it. Let's upgrade it. But going back to your kind of initial question, for me, it's a tool, it's a technique, it's a strategy for allowing us to update and upgrade our mind at a deeper level that controls all of our natural, instinctive, automatic functions, beliefs, behavior patterns, habits, and thought processes. So again, if it's not working for you, just know that it's possible to change it. And once you know that alone is a great starting point, and then you can explore the best way of doing it for yourself. And for me, through the years of working with many clients, I choose hypnosis as one of the most powerful tools to do that.
And you certainly had some successes. I remember, I might be a little shot in the dark here, but weren't you working years ago with professional dart players? Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did work with a professional darts player who went on to win a major in that season that I worked with him. I've worked with a lot of professional athletes. Well, a lot of athletes from amateur all the way up to premier players in their sport. So sports. They're great. They're great to work with, sports people. They're highly motivated.
Indeed.
They want to achieve. Typically their lifespan in that chosen sport is going to be limited. So they want to do the best they can. And it's a great comparison to make with life in general, sport, because still there's been a massive shift, but still, if you look at sport, still a huge part of being the best that people can be is put on the physical side of the game, sport, whatever it might be. Yeah. And still the mindset is massively overlooked. Don't get me wrong, it's changed a lot, and there's a lot of kind of great players and individuals who have come out and said, I do work on the mental side of my game, but it's still largely untapped in the way it could be utilized. And I think that then spreads across all areas of life. So if somebody who is hugely successful or an amazing talent can use their mindset to improve, then I think we're all able to use it to some degree.
I think so. And I think that when you look at something like sport, and you see that these sportsmen and women and teams and clubs and associations, et cetera, all work with coaches from all elements: nutritionists, dietitians, sleep coaches. Now I've seen Premier League footballers working with mindset coaches, hypnotherapists, psychologists, so on and so forth. And then you see successful business owners, CEOs, entrepreneurs also attributing success to coaches. It was only a matter of time before it went mainstream and people had access to really, really good coaching. My only concern with this is that the barrier to entry to coaching nowadays is quite low. And so there's a big difference between good quality coaching and not, so to speak. How do we go about circumventing that, do you think?
Cool, that's a tough one, isn't it? I think it's similar in any profession, any field, that you're always going to get the cross-section of the degrees of that. From an individual watching, listening, I would just say you've got to do your homework. You've got to do your homework, and that's why people like yourself and I will put as much out there to help people as we possibly can, whether that be through our podcast, whether that be through our social media channels, whether that be through YouTube videos, blogs. We do that because we want to help as many people as possible. But then also it makes it easier for people to educate themselves as to whether we're a good fit for them. It's a two-way relationship. I don't take on every client that approaches me, in the same way as I'm pretty 100% certain that anyone who lands onto my website or views one of my things, I'm not a good fit for everybody. And I'll quite happily pass people on to somebody who I feel would be best fit for them. So from an individual point of view, I think same as also, any decision you choose to make in life, just do your own research, just do your own homework, and check out the caliber of the person that you're looking at to work with, and see if they're a good fit for the particular area that you want to improve at that time. So, somebody might be a good fit for that, and then somebody else might be a better fit for when you're at that stage. So I think it's difficult to know how we can impact it other than making sure the individual initially is educated enough to know that they can look around and make sure that they can ask the right questions to make the best decision for them.
Yeah, I agree. One of the reasons that I do this podcast is so I can bring people on of high caliber like yourself, and give people options, give people information. Look, I'm long in the tooth enough to know that we're not everyone's cup of tea, and the way we work is the way we work, and it does evolve over time, but it's not going to be a fit for everyone. So as you say, to bring more people into the fold and to connect with more people and give more options, I think is the way to do it. Is good practice.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's why we both do what we do and continue to do what we do.
Yeah.
And if that helps people at that level, great. And if they ever decide they want to work with us, they're already aware of our style and our kind of personality and our approach. And if that's a good fit, fabulous. If it's not, all the best finding the person that is.
Absolutely. And Christian, just before we, I know the times are cracking on as always on these podcasts. They go really, really quickly. They really do. Where can people find out more about you, my friend?
Well, my main hub would be my website, my blog, which is christianbaker.net. From there, I'm on Instagram. I post a weekly video on YouTube. I've got my podcast as well. But if you visit christianbaker.net, then you can find pretty much everything from there.
That's perfect. And I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule and away from your family this bank holiday weekend to spend half an hour with me, just having a good old-fashioned chinwag.
Oh, you're welcome, Paul. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and thanks for persevering and making sure that this happened today.
Yeah, I wasn't going to let you go, my man. I wasn't going to let you go.
And before I let you go, then I must have got on record then that you'll be appearing on my podcast soon as well. Then.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you so very much. And thank you for your time spent with me today.
Brilliant. Take care, Paul.
And you, my friend.